the Charter Commission, which was duly noted for this date and time, pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 on March 29, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act extending pandemic-related authorizations related to public meetings, allowing remote meetings options for public bodies through March 31st of 2025. Consequently, the February 20th, 2024 meeting of the Charter Review Committee will be conducted via remote participation by the board. All attendees are participating remotely, and they are Peter Cahill, the co-chair, Nancy Hyde, member Nancy Hyde, member Nancy Locke, member Dottie Powers, Town Council Patrick Ahern, our legal advisor Lauren Goldman, and Town Administrator Chris Coleman, and the co-chair Paul Fitzgerald is also participating, and our meeting is being recorded by our clerk Jessica Cole. So I apologize that we had to cancel last Tuesday's meeting, but like a lot of groups, we were advised because of the anticipated snow that we should not, it wouldn't be safe. And it didn't turn out to be as snowy as we thought, but we did reschedule the meeting tonight. This meeting has two purposes. It was originally designed for those two purposes. One was to continue our discussion of the charter amendments, specifically in preparation for our meeting with the Board of Select persons on Monday, and then the next public hearing of the Finance and Warrant Commission on Tuesday. And the other purpose was we wanted to afford the citizens of Westwood the opportunity to participate in this meeting, to learn what we've been doing, what it is we're proposing, and to receive any feedback, comments, questions from the members of the public. I believe we do have some members, some individuals already monitoring the meeting, and it is our intent as part of the agenda to open it up for any questions, comments, information that the members of the public and other town officials who are in attendance tonight would like to present.
Yeah, as has been the case with every meeting that we've had.
It has been the case of every meeting we had. Yes, Mr. Cahill. Thank you for pointing that out. So I thought that for the best way for us to do our discussion or information session for the public on the purposes behind the charter review and a summary of the processes taken by the charter review would be to share with the fellow members of the committee and anybody participating tonight remotely or attendance some of the slides that we put together that out.
Oops. You're freezing, Paul.
The best way to proceed. And I know some of the slides.
Yeah. Oh, let's see if I can get it.
We can see you now, Paul.
Okay, yeah, I'm in the air traffic control seat.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, those, yeah, we have added some slides, and I thank Member Hyde for her work on it to talk about the.
Yeah, and we can update them tonight, but let me just make it easier. So these are the overview slides that we'll use next week. I'll get you to the actual substantive slides.
Well, the one about what a charter is and what we've been doing, that sort of thing.
You want to go back? Okay. Here we go.
All right. There was, yeah. The other, you had a slide about the charter and how it's
sorry. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, at the outset, as the member should know, and for purposes of.
Paul, you're fading in and out.
For the past 2 years, it's going to be discussed during the charter, which is the as we indicated, it's the cornerstone document in the organization functions and essential procedures of town government. Pursuant to the existing charter, a review happens every 10 years. And the last comprehensive review took place in 2010. And I was honored to be part of that Charter Review Commission, as was Co-Chair Cahill and Clerk Powell. We were a little bit behind the 10-year threshold because of the pandemic, but we did get in March of 2022, and we have been meeting pretty much monthly since that point in time, maybe during the course of the summers, not monthly. And what we started out with was doing a survey of all of the elected boards and appointed boards of the town, asking them for their thoughts on the current charter, what they thought worked well, what they thought was in need of review, what would constitute a best practice. And we have been working through those every month, reviewing the existing charter, making changes, looking at the surveys, discussing different components of the charter back and forth amongst each other. And the first part of our work we completed at the May 2023 town meeting, where we brought forward an article that would ask the legislature for a home rule petition to convert the positions of treasurer and tax collector to the appointed positions. That was passed at the town meeting, and the whole article was presented to the legislature. And the last that I know, it is still before the legislature. Is that correct, Chris or Pat or anybody who can?
They asked for some specific language changes that the select board approved at I think our last meeting, and we've sent that into them.
Right. And so after we did that part of the charter, we continued to review the whole charter from line by line, basically. And that's at the point we presented in January to the select board our recommended well, we voted in December to sort of close our deliberations and our recommendations, subject to some amendments or tweaking or language change that became necessary as we moved through the process of reviewing the articles with the select board, the finance committee, town council. And so in January, we presented, December, we presented to the select board our proposed changes. And we then proceeded to preview them to the Finance and Warrant Commission. And they were codified and sort of summarized and presented in the booklet that was mailed to all the residents of Westwood. And so we are in the process at this point of making sure that we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And if there's any last minute tweaking that we need to do to the language of the proposed articles. And we're also preparing to meet with the select board again on Monday, and then to the Finance and Warrant Commission on Tuesday. So that is sort of what the purpose of who we are and what we've been doing. And if there's any questions from anybody who's watching this evening regarding that, I'm happy to answer them, or have my fellow committee members answer them. So is there any hands raised at this point, Jess? No. I would invite my fellow committee members, if there's anything they want to add relative to the
Paul, I'm
purpose.
sorry. Jim O'Sullivan did raise his hand. I can bring
Who?
him in if you'd like. Jim O'Sullivan.
Does he have a question?
I guess he's raised his hand. I
Okay.
could bring him in and we can ask him.
If it's on the purpose, sure.
Yeah. Jim, you're
Good evening.
muted. Oh, there you are.
Good evening.
Moderator.
Your question, Paul, wasn't very clear. I do have a proposal to make.
Yep.
Is it something the commission would be open to consider anyway, or to hear?
Well, that's one of that we can get to that, Jim, during the course of the meeting. At this point in time, I just wanted to see if anybody in the residents of Westwood had any questions relative to who we are and what we've been doing.
No. Okay. I do not.
No, thank you. And I would give my fellow members an opportunity if they want to comment on sort of who we are, what our purpose is, what we've been doing, how we got here, for purposes of edification for the residents of Westwood.
I would just add that, and you probably touched on this a little bit, but in the course of our meetings, after we did the survey, we did do a lot of interviewing
Yes,
of past elected, current electeds, town staff, where with as many people as we felt had information to share that would help us as we looked through the charter document as it currently exists, to identify areas where improvements could be made or changes were necessary. So that was an integral part of the process.
and yes, that we did that over the course of several meetings. And I believe we spoke to just about every board and appointed official and elected official in the town as part of that. Peter, did you want to add anything?
I think I think you've touched on the key parts. But maybe in terms of color, I think all of us have come to this, this effort and for those of us that did the prior effort with a pretty meaningful experience involved in the town in different ways, whether it's been on, FinCom or boards of, select boards in years past, or many of the other appointed boards. So I think when I was asked to be part of this and we understood the makeup of it, it was going to be, and it is, another collection of folks that have been interested in the town for years, decades, almost everybody, and wanting to act in the best interest of the town, and with some experience, meaningful experience at various levels of town government, and also a variety of other groups and associations not officially part of the town, but comprised of town citizens. So just some additional color might be helpful.
And thank you. John, did you want to add anything, or Dottie?
Nothing to add at this point. Thank you.
Okay. And so to this point, we presented to the select board and they have been approved for inclusion on the warrant and previewed with the Finance and Warrant Commission with subsequent public hearing to follow a number of articles they are the first article relates to the quorum for the town meeting. We are recommending that the charter be changed to allow for once a quorum is established at a town meeting, the business of the town meeting will continue even if voters meeting participation decline over the course of the meeting. This does not set the quorum, what that number is. That is subject to a bylaw. But we believe that this would allow a town meeting to complete its business in one night, hopefully, in an orderly fashion, without inconveniencing the residents of Westwood by making them come back for another evening, and also to the expense that incurs if we have to go to another night. So that's the first article that we had proposed, and I believe is it number 5 on the warrant, Pat? I can't remember precisely the number that it is, but
It is, Paul. That's where SB, it's select
Yeah.
board article number 5. I'm updated it to match
okay,
a
great.
mailing that went out.
So the citizens of Westwood at the town meeting will be asked as number 5, as the article number 5 on the warrant to consider and vote on changing the charter to allow the business of the town meeting to continue even if the number of meeting voters decline over the course of the meeting. And the next article that the select board has accepted and will be on the meeting, will be on the warrant, will be warrant article number 6. And that is a transitionary article. What we are recommending is that the town clerk position be converted from an elected to an appointed position. It does not change the current town clerk, and she serves until her tenure expires. Town clerk powers was granted by an act of the legislature tenure and has not been subject to election for how many years, Dottie?
We've got it on here, 2014.
Since 2014. And so we would continue that as an appointed position. The article contains a home rule petition, and in that home rule petition, it provides that Clerk Powers would continue until she's 70 years old, or she decides to, if she decided to step down ahead of that, and also would provide for her to become, if it was so deemed, the first appointed town clerk.
Paul, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a question or something that's been posted saying that someone's having trouble with the link to get
Okay.
into the Zoom room, and it's I know we have people there who haven't had problems with it, so I'm not sure what we should do.
Can you resend it? It's on the town website, or isn't it? I believe, is it not, Jess?
I had a hard time jumping on too, just FYI, but I opened the attachment and accessed the link through there, and it was much better. Here I am.
So explain, be
Through the
very
calendar
specific.
function, Lauren?
Yeah, I went in the calendar and opened that, but then I opened the attachment and I could get on when I used the attachment.
And you couldn't get on when you went to the link on the page?
I couldn't, just like on the calendar page, no.
Okay, you know, I'm gonna look at that.
Should we proceed, or do we want to send the link to
Why don't we
someone?
wait a minute to see if we can figure out the glitch, Paul?
I'm just typing in a response to, you know. But this could be a problem for other people, even if we get this person in, so we.
If we did have an issue, we'll continue our work tonight, and we can continue to have future meetings and up to town
You
meeting.
can also take written comment, Paul, if you need to.
Right, it's our wish to have as much information conveyed to the residents of Westwood and have them have an opportunity to truly understand what it is that we're proposing and why we're proposing it. And as a member Cahill pointed out, at every meeting, we have afforded that opportunity for people to ask questions, make comments, and we will as well
Can,
this evening.
can the person who's having difficulty getting in let us know if they're
I've
successful?
asked, yeah, I've put that in. Please to let us know. But having Dottie check it is a good idea. Maybe she can refresh that link. Even though, you know, going to the attachment is also available, but let's see what she can do. Okay, the person who posted is in now. I don't know if we want to move forward. I know Dottie's looking into it to try to make it easier.
And we can wait a moment for Madam Clerk.
I know it's jumping the gun, but do we want to invite Jim to talk about what he wants to,
Let's keep it in order.
We will certainly give welcome the opportunity to hear from the moderator during the course of the meeting. I'm just trying to serve the public information purpose of the meeting at the outset. Is Madam Clerk back with us, or?
Dottie must be working on it because I just went to the website and the link is detached right now from the calendar. So I think she's probably trying to update it.
Reboot it.
I would think something like that.
Okay, so it should be fine now. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, just go on the page and then just, what you're gonna have to do is highlight the link.
then when you say the page, you mean the town
Oh.
website?
The charter review page, calendar page for tonight,
Yes.
and just hover over it. And then you're able to open it up.
Should we proceed?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's working. You want to highlight it and then it will bring you to the page.
Thank you.
Hover
Well,
over it and then go.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Given the question that was asked, do you think it would be beneficial to do a quick recap of what was discussed for the first 10 or 15 minutes and then continue on with the meeting, or
sure,
just?
sure.
Okay.
It did work. I just tried it as well.
So, the recap, would you like me to do the, committee like me to do the recap? Or, we convened this meeting, as I noted at the outset, for two purposes: to continue our work in preparation for our meeting with the Select Board and with the Finance Warrant Commission. But we also have another purpose, which is to continue our efforts to educate the citizens of Westwood as to who we are and what we have been doing and what we recommend and why we recommend it. And we did discuss the purpose of this commission, which is to review every 10 years the charter, which is the cornerstone document for the town government. It occurs every 10 years, such review. As I indicated, we were a year or so behind because of the pandemic, but we have been working on this since March of 2022. We have solicited opinion in writing and in person from the various town boards, elected and appointed officials, and have done so at every meeting. And we have been going through the charter literally line by line, section by section. The first part of our work was presented at the May 2023 town meeting, when we recommended to the town that they approve an article which resulted in a home rule petition to the legislature, which would convert the positions of treasurer and tax collector to from elected to appointed positions. And we have now presented in December to the Select Board and have previewed for the Finance and Warrant Commission a number of articles that will be considered at the May town meeting relative to the charter. And we had discussed the first article, which will be warrant question 5, excuse me, warrant article 5, which, and here's some more information. Yes, we've had 25 meetings.
You want to go back to that one? I'm sorry.
Just briefly to show the people who may be in attendance. 25 meetings, 17 currently elected officials, formerly elected officials and staff have received public input and had an opportunity for public input at each of our meetings. And as I said, we have now presented articles that have been placed on the warrant for the May town meeting. The first article, which will be warrant article number 5, would be to amend the charter to provide that once a quorum at a town meeting is established, that quorum will continue throughout the course of the meeting, and there will be no need to reconvene the meeting for a lack of a quorum. As I said, that does not set the quorum for the town meeting. That is a subject to a town bylaw.
I'm also adding the housing authority.
Oh, housing.
Is also one of the
Yeah.
articles.
Mhm. Okay. And we had moved on to the second article we're proposing, which is warrant Article 6, relative to converting the position of town clerk from an elected to an appointed one. I had noted that since 2014, because of a town meeting vote and a home rule petition, Clerk Powers has been appointed, has been granted tenure, and this article would not change that. The current town clerk would continue to serve. And at this point, so I'm not the only voice people are hearing, I'd ask Member Hyde if she would sort of walk
Sure.
through.
Just so the public knows, we're going to have the opportunity in this meeting to go through these slides in case there are any additional things that Dottie thinks should be added. But what's noted here is that under the current constitution of the town clerk, it's not necessary for the town clerk to actually work in town hall or work a full work week. We are very fortunate that we have a town clerk that takes her responsibilities very seriously and works an excessive amount of hours, especially during election season, but does carry out a significant number of responsibilities. So the point is, that's not required when one gets elected to be town clerk, but it is what our current town clerk does. There is a tremendous amount of responsibility in the town that the town clerk has and the office has. Oversight of all the elections that take place in Westwood. That includes local, the municipal elections, any state elections, and any federal elections. So we happen to have a big year this year, which includes the primaries as part of the federal election process. And we'll have our own local election. So Dottie, through her years, has become very busy in that regard. There's also more ways that voting takes place, early election, et cetera. So that one responsibility of oversight of elections is actually a huge amount of work that's involved in the clerk's office. There's a lot of other regular items that take place and run through the office, including obtaining marriage licenses, dog licenses, et cetera. So Dottie interfaces with people in the community for a variety of reasons, and she has a talented staff that supports that work. All the town meeting business, the preparation for town meeting, the process of electronic voting, processing the results of the election afterwards, doing the appropriate submittals to the Attorney General's office at the state level for their review and hopefully approval of the votes that took place during the town meeting, are all an essential part of the function of the clerk's office. Processes like the one we're in, you can see we have the town clerk as a member, but also to the extent anything changes, the documents, the records that are kept by the town have to be updated. That applies to the charter, any town bylaws that get changed, and any zoning bylaws that get changed. And I remember early on in Dottie's tenure, she went through a complete recodification process of the town bylaws to help improve the organization of that particular type of document. Our town clerk, and Dottie can speak to this, I believe, in general, clerks also get the role of being a justice of the peace and can fulfill the qualifications to become a notary, et cetera, because I'm sure there are even more things that we don't notice day to day, but that take place in the clerk's office. This is an attempt to highlight some of the more visible in items that the public interfaces on. Did I do all right, Dottie, on that?
You did. And, just to kind of highlight, it's an elected position, but you are involved in over probably 275 duties. And I mean, I think you just you hit upon, you know, a lot of the big ones, but there's also many other duties that go along with the responsibility of the town clerk. And a really big responsibility is the public records access officer. So that's another large component these days of the public record requests that we receive. I have to make sure that they go to the appropriate person and they're all done, you know, by
Finally.
the law in a timely fashion.
And John, did you want to add something? Member Loughnane? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you, Paul. I just wanted to add briefly that in reviewing the charter, I and I think my fellow board members here, or charter members, didn't view it as a commentary on any specific individual performance. Obviously, Clerk Powers does an outstanding job, and we're all fortunate to have her in the town doing what she's doing. But the purpose of the Charter Review Commission, from my perspective, I think from the perspective of the group, is really just to focus in on the workings of the document, workings of the charter, take the individual people out of it. And we want to make sure that we have a good foundation and structure in place to allow the town to govern itself in the most efficient way possible. And I also just wanted to comment briefly that in doing this job, we were aided by legal counsel who told us sort of what's happening in the other cities and towns across the state, so that we could get not only the experiences of prior Charter Review Committee members in this town, but also what other cities and towns are doing with their charters for best practices.
Thank you, John. Peter, did you want to add anything? I would just highlight something as well. And I know that Chris and Clerk Powers and Town Council Ahern would second this. There are very dire consequences to towns if your elections are not conducted properly. It can result in not being able to have people assume their offices. It can result in things that are voted, questions and changes to charters and to bylaws not taking effect. And it also are dire consequences if the records and the minutes and the materials from the town meeting are not accurately assembled and presented to the Attorney General's office. It can result in articles being voided that were adopted at the town meeting. And so there are serious consequences, and which is why we felt particularly those two duties, to be the guardian and custodian of our elections. There's nothing more sacred than elections, and the work for town meeting. It's very important that whoever has that responsibility has the knowledge, experience, training, and commitment required to properly carry out those responsibilities.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may add to your comment,
Yes.
elections have changed radically since the beginning of the pandemic as well.
Yes.
They're far more complex than they ever were before, with early voting, voting by mail, etc. And Dottie's been able to handle that almost seamlessly, and we're fortunate to have her, because other towns have not experienced the same kind of results that we've had.
And as you know, and I think Chris and Attorney Goldberg can attest to, there are very severe consequences when that happens. But thank you.
If I
Yes, Madam Clerk.
if I just want to agree with John too. It's, you know, we're looking long-term, not the person, but the position, you know,
Yeah.
what's going to be best in the future.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Do you want to move to the next article, Member Hyde?
Mm-hmm.
The Article 7, and we will have further discussion because we have received some feedback from the Finance Warrant Commission. But at this point, I would just like to sort of lay it out, and then when we move to the agenda items from FinCom, we can talk some more about it. But we are recommending it will be warrant Article number 7, to allow flexibility in the number of members of the Finance and Warrant Commission who perform an extremely important function in the town, particularly in the preparation for a town meeting and in making sure that the budgets are scrutinized and sound. And we thought that we could go from anywhere from 11 to 15 appointed members at the discretion of the town moderator. And the other provision of the article that represents a substantial changes, it would permit members of the Finance and Warrant Commission to serve as ex officio, or not, in other words, non-voting members of other boards and committees. And I know we will have more discussion about this article later in the meeting.
If
Anybody?
I can add, Paul, regarding the ex officio option, we discussed the value added of Finance and Warrant Commission members being on certain boards and committees. We had past experience with that, and unfortunately, we had to discontinue that because the charter read that that wasn't permissible. There were changes made back, I want to say close to 30 years ago, that prohibited Finance Commission members from running for public office in town and serving on the Finance and Warrant Commission. And with that change, I believe that's when it was probably not as well understood, or people weren't as aware that Finance and Warrant Commission members couldn't serve on other boards and committees, not, beyond the elected capacity. And we discontinued that, but this reflects that some people have had firsthand experience that there is value added when Finance and Warrant Commission members participate regularly in certain committees, and we wanted to allow that to resume, but put it at a non-voting level.
Do any other members of the committee wish to comment on that or have anything to add? Now, hearing none, we can move to the next article.
Okay.
We went one up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Number 8. So on the warrant question, warrant article number 8 relates to the personnel board. During the course of our deliberations, based on the discussions with the Human Resources Director of the town and the town administrator, we determined that in 2024, the hiring, retaining of personnel is very different than it was when personnel boards were first created. And so we feel that rather than being the board that actually does the hiring, has to do the classifications and the salary approvals, that we shift to a model which is what has been sort of happening in the town, and which the Personnel Advisory Board themselves feel is a better role for them. They would no longer be the personnel board, they would become the Personnel Advisory Board, and they would work with the town administrator and human resources director on a regular basis to review positions, to advise, and to encourage and to help the administrator and the human resources director as they carry out their important responsibilities of hiring and managing employees. It
And I
reflects.
think an important thing that, Chris, you may want to speak to this, but that we were made aware of is that in the current form, before the recommended change, it became a time issue, that the process of going to a personnel board for the function that they served could delay moving forward on providing offers to potential employees, and that time could result in losing the opportunity to hire somebody who might have had another offer. So in the consideration of efficiencies of process, this was deemed to be a helpful change to have made or to make. Chris, did I capture that?
You did. It certainly is a recruitment retention concern that we have with the current, the way the charter is currently written, and what's being proposed would certainly address that.
Thank you. Any of my fellow members want to add anything to that? No. The next article, which would be number 9 on the warrant, relates to the Permanent Building Commission. What our goal here was to add flexibility to the makeup of the PBC, known as Permanent Building Commission. It also would bring us into compliance with state law. So it would require that a school committee be included as an associate member for any school project during the pendency of that project. That is what the state law requires. Would also allow the PBC to function more efficiently, because it would allow them to decline jurisdiction for smaller projects if the size, scope, or cost of the project does not warrant their involvement. It would allow the town administrator or the DPW director or whoever was responsible for that project to move forward consistent with the state procurement laws and not have to involve the Permanent Building Committee. This was a suggestion that came from the Permanent Building Committee through its chairman. They felt that it would allow the committee to function more efficiently and also would bring us into consistency with state law. Any further comment? No. And then we have an article, number 10, which is a technical article. And I would, if I could call upon either Pat or Lauren to sort of just talk about what we mean by the technical changes, sort of the nature, because there's a lot of them. They're not substantive changes. They're technical changes to correct a wording that's archaic or no longer reflects how we do things, or is inconsistent with the state law, or just doesn't meet. In one section of the charter, we say 10 days, in another section it would say 14 days, that sort of thing. But Lauren or Pat, maybe Lauren, can you just sort of talk about that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind?
Well, I think you just did a great job, Mr. Chair, at describing those things. They're the types of things that really make no substantive difference, but that are important to the overall readability and usability of the charter.
And they are available if you read the changes to the charter, and we'll make sure that the Finance Warrant Commission and the residents and voters of Westwood understand the nature of these technical changes. But anybody who's participated in town meeting, it's similar to the articles that we often take up on zoning that make technical changes to the zoning provisions. That's what it's akin to.
And may I just note that the list question mark was, maybe we should give some examples, and we can look into that to provide this for the public hearing before the Finance and Warrant Commission, because I just wanted it to be a little bit clearer to people what we're talking about. And you gave good examples, Paul, of what it might be, but I think we should put in examples of what we're actually including.
The next article.
Paul, if I may, just on this, I think that we either already have posted or we will have posted a complete black line of the existing charter versus all changes. So, I mean, this presentation right here is just meant to be an overview of the broad categories of changes, but every specific change that's being recommended is going to be obviously black-lined for close inspection.
And it will be included in the warrant book that gets mailed to everybody prior to town meeting.
And one of the reasons why we have a number of articles is because we wanted the people of Westwood to understand each article that they're voting on. And if we were making a substantive change, for example, for the quorum requirement of the town meeting or the town clerk, we did not want that to be part of another more comprehensive technical or housekeeping article. We wanted that to be very much transparent and very clear and to the people as they read through the articles. And the next article, which will be warrant article 11, is housekeeping articles. And I guess the best way to describe those is the way it is there. These are edits needed to correct typos, reformatting, renumbering, or needed to comport with state law. When we did notice some typos and some language that had tenses that needed to be fixed. And when you change one part of the charter, you need to renumber other parts of the charter for consistency and clarity's sake. And we did a couple times have to, the provisions of state law that are referenced in the charter have changed, or it's a new subsection, so we needed to correct those. And then Article 11, we do have language in the charter about a housing authority, but as our special counsel Goldberg and town council Hearn pointed out to us, it's archaic. It doesn't reflect the actual operations of the law. It allowed us to seek a waiver that doesn't exist from a department that's been renamed. So we thought to make it as clear and concise as possible that we simply provide that there be a housing authority of 5 members elected, appointed as provided by law. And again, this is a separate article because it is a substantive question, a matter. You know, and invite any of my colleagues to comment on that article or anything before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I
Member
Paul,
Cahill?
just on that, I mean, I think the key on that prior article is we currently have a housing authority. I mean,
Yes.
it's you know, I think arguably we could have included this in one of the technical cleanup sections, but I think in the interest of sort of erring on the side of being more open and than not, we have it as a separate article. But I don't think this is really a substantive
No,
change
doesn't.
in how we operate. I think it is more cleanup than anything.
It just provides for a housing authority that we already have to be appointed in a manner consistent with the now existing state law. You're absolutely right, Member Cahill.
Actually, Chairman, could,
Yes.
I just wanted to make that point as well, that Peter and you both made. We have a housing authority, we've had a housing authority. It just was not in the charter, which is, again, a cleanup to get this in there.
The charter language, as is presented here, as I said, talked about waivers from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is now, I believe, simply the Executive Office of Housing and Community Develop. Is it Housing and Community?
No, I think it's living,
Right, livable.
yeah.
But anyway,
It
so
used to be the Department of Housing and Community Development.
right. So we just wanted to make that as clear and concise as possible. Any other comments? And we will, when we get to the public participation component, we're happy to answer any questions, unless there's any questions right now that the members of the public would like us to answer relative to the articles themselves before we move on to a discussion.
Mr. Chair, just a question. Given the brief conversation that was had on this slide, does this slide clearly reflect what the committee is trying to accomplish? I just want to make sure. I don't know if the members or maybe special counsel has any suggestions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Certainly, Attorney Goldberg.
I think the way that the clerk explained it is probably the closest to what we need to be doing, which is essentially we don't want to have something in the charter that incorrectly references the power to elect and appoint for the housing authority. Housing authorities are created by state law, and state law has changed. And so in order to make sure that we have reference to the housing authority in the charter and that we don't have to keep coming back to amend it after state law changes, we thought we would just be more streamlined and just include this reference. And Member Hyde, I'm happy to work with you to update this slide so that we're all on the same page about what the purpose is.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll take you up on that.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. So now I'd like to see if make sure that we have, now that we presented the articles, like to go back and talk a little bit about one of the articles, which is the article relative to the Finance and Warrant Commission, because we have received some feedback from the commission. I had a meeting with the chair and the vice chair of the Finance and Warrant Commission to get some feedback from them, and their capacity is sort of the subcommittee that's looking at the charter review articles. And I believe the chairman, Mr. Hertz, is with us tonight, but if I could just characterize it, and if George wishes to comment further, we certainly can invite him to do so. They are concerned that this article would cause difficulties for them. Number one, they firmly believe that the FinCom should consist of 15 members, and they are committed to working with the town moderator and other people in the town to get 15 members at any given time. They are also concerned that given the structure of the committees that they presently have, that if they were to go down to 11 members, it would damage their committee structure and their operations and their proceedings. And they just feel that 15 is the best number, that it's something that we should always seek to have, and that having 15 members is most conducive to the good deliberations and operations of the Finance and Warrant Commission. And I don't know, George, George wanted to add anything? If he did, he can raise his hand. See none. So I bring that to this committee. I think that we ought to seriously consider that feedback, and perhaps, we should go to keep it at 15 and still provide for the ex officio membership in the article. But I welcome my colleagues' thoughts. Yes, Mr. Hearn.
Yeah, I had a discussion with the chairman myself today, and I have concerns about a strict requirement of 15, given the fact that sometimes you have very good members of the FinCom who want to run for office, and they're more valuable in those elected positions. And it comes at a time of the year when they're pretty well along in their process. So I would be okay with remaining with some kind of language, and I'd like Lauren to comment on this, that 15 is the goal or whatever, but given circumstances that the moderator can be allowed to let it fall below 15. If we run into problems with people moving out of town, resigning, or running for office, or for whatever reason, I think the moderator needs some flexibility, especially when you get to March and you've got your warrants established.
Okay, and would that meet the concerns raised by the Finance Warrant Commission regarding this article, Mr. Hearn?
I'll let George comment on that.
It might be helpful if we let George
Sure.
in as a participant.
Mr. Hertz, is Jess letting him in?
Yeah.
I'm letting him in. We'll see
Thank
if he
you, Kat.
accepts my, oh, here he comes.
George, do we have George?
Yeah, George, you're muted if you're talking.
And
Thank
There you
you,
are.
George. Welcome.
welcome. Let me explain to you the concerns. One, I have tremendous respect for the current town moderator, but it's my understanding throughout my long history on the FinCom, there have been some very legitimate reasons why we've had to drop below 15. It could be illness, it could be somebody running for office, but most of the time we'd have been able to stay close to or at 15. I think I've said in the FinCom meetings, I truly think that a 15 member really gives us broad diversity in terms of opinion and what's going on in the town. I have found that it's just it's probably the largest committee we have in town, and it's reflective of the different values, especially as some of these younger people come on board. We do have a very complex committee structure. We have 5 committees now. Everybody is actively involved in it. We've separated capital from operating budgets. I think everybody is fairly familiar with our structure. So it is reflective of having 15 members. My thought would be, and I did talk with our town council today, is there some language we could put in that say, I personally thought we heard that we are in compliance even if we drop below 15. There's nothing in the charter, nothing in the current bylaws that says we're out of compliance if at any point in time we drop below 15. But if the moderator would feel more comfortable having some language in there which says, which definitively says we can operate with less than 15 members, I'm fine with that. I just felt very strongly, and I think I'm speaking for the vice chair, that while we said early on when we met with your committee that managing a smaller number would be easier for us, at the end of the day, we felt it's just so valuable having a lot of citizens on this committee, and I think it's a benefit to the town. And I will say this, you know, it does concern me that at town meeting, we struggle to get 200 to 300 people to show up for a non-controversial town meeting. So I think it even says to me that a broad FinCom is extremely important. So I'd be comfortable with some language that would maybe make the moderator feel a little comfortable that to definitively say we can't operate with less than 15. But I personally feel, and I think it's reflective of my membership, that we'd like to stay at 15 as our goal.
Lauren, is there language we can put in to protect that downward kind of spike situation?
I'm sure there is. I would have to kind of take a look at it. But I'm sure I can propose something for the committee to look at.
Then let me do two things first. I know the town moderator is with us. I might want to make sure that he understands this and that this flexibility serves him. And then I would invite my committee members to comment on this as well. So is Jim still a participant, Jess?
Yeah, I can bring him on in if you'd like.
Please. Do we have
Jim, you're
town-
muted if you're talking.
There you go. Can you see me? Can you hear me now?
And Mr. Moderator, how are you?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the point Mr. Hertz makes. My only comment is that I would be reluctant to appoint someone to FinCom late in the budgetary process to start. It's a difficult committee. So if we lost someone mid-year, I'd like the flexibility maybe not to fill a role if it's late in the process, and have the committee be allowed to operate with less than 15.
I actually think that's an excellent point, Mr. Moderator, because I think you're right. If there's so much to learn and pick up, I think that's a very smart move. That would give everybody some comfort, that take the pressure off, especially as we're in mid-year getting ready for town meeting.
So I've been around a little while and I've seen former moderators, Jim, struggle to try and appoint people in March to get caught up to the process. And I just don't think it does the FinCom justice for all the hard work that they put in up to that date.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If the special counsel can come up with some language, which basically says it's okay to drop below throughout the year, I would assume I'm totally comfortable with that, as long as our goal is still, once we begin the year, to hopefully be at 15.
I invite the charter committee members. Do they?
Mr. Chair, if I could just quickly.
Yes.
I just wanted to remind, so I agree that there's nothing that prohibits the commission from operating, the Finance and Warrant Commission from operating with fewer than 15 members. I think part of the problem is that the quorum doesn't change on the commission at that point. And so if we had 7 vacancies, for example, we'd still need 8 people to show up so that there would be a quorum present for action. So that's one thing. And then the other is, if we're basing this on a timeline, I think it would be useful to have kind of a grasp on what that is. Does that mean, you know, if there's vacancies later than December, that the chair doesn't need to fill them, or if there's vacancies later than January. So I think it would be worthwhile talking about that a bit, just to come up with a workable schedule that we could then turn into charter language.
So as
I
you,
think
Can I make a suggestion on that? I would leave that at the discretion of the moderator. I think the moderator probably has the best overview, of when to appoint and not appoint. So I'm totally comfortable with the moderator, being able to make that call rather than tie it to specific dates, which I think gets a little, I don't know, seems a little tight to me. I'd rather give the moderator the authority and flexibility to do that.
Thank you. Members of the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to offer a bit of a contrarian point of view. One of the overarching objectives of this group, the charter group, has been to think long-term, because the reviews that we do are, that the town has done, are every 10 years now. And as I look ahead 10 years out and think, it's already challenging at times to appoint people to all the boards and commissions we have in town. I don't know how many total positions we do, but between the elected officers that Dottie oversees and all the other positions, I think it's in the range of 400 people. When we approached this particular issue or matter, we looked at it as what provides flexibility long-term. And one of the reasons I always thought was important was, what if it becomes increasingly difficult to the point that constituting a 15-member warrant commission is not practical? And building in the flexibility and acknowledging that things may change was something I thought that the article as it's currently drafted would accomplish. I hear the discussion, and I think moving towards something that says we aspire to 15, but it may drop below for whatever reasons. I just think we should acknowledge maybe one of those reasons is difficulty in appropriate appointments. Something extra in that. Maybe getting a little bit of both worlds in the article.
Member Loughnane, did you?
Well, I just wanted to say that we spent a lot of time on this issue during our deliberations over the course of the past couple of years. I thought we had arrived at a point that reflected the input of several people that spoke to us. I liked the flexibility that we had. Obviously, we're not done with the job. We're still listening to people. So I appreciate the perspectives that I'm hearing about tonight. I know we made some modifications to this proposal already from what we had initially proposed. So I still have an open mind on listening to various viewpoints on this, but I generally thought that some flexibility here for the town moderator would be a good thing. And I was comfortable with the language that we had proposed.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Certainly, but I wanted to see if Mr. Cahill had any. I wanted to give Peter.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the input of, well, let's allow the moderator to have the ability to not have to appoint. That is going down the path of what we've provided here. I actually think having the 11 to 15 number is more protective for those that would want to preserve a higher number of FinCom members. Personally, I think that language is actually better than just a broader ability not to appoint language. But I also think we need to recognize, in terms of like size and how we think about this and size, I mean, I think we have to acknowledge we have a large committee, and it's an outlier, certainly, in the size of the committees that we have in connection with our town. And you can do, we could all do research as to numbers, the makeup of FinCom or comparable committees in our peer communities. And sure, we can find some that have 15 members, but usually they're larger in size by many thousands of residents. for the most part, you're looking at 9 or fewer members of a FinCom or comparable kind of committee. So, I mean, that's the reality. So, I understand there's the sense of wanting to keep it because the current chair and vice chair like how it works and how they've set up the committee structure, the internal committee structure there. So I hear that. So we're not looking to change just to change, but as we think about it, we're weighing it back and forth. And, the proposed language was trying to sort of get at the flexibility, but still allow for up to the 15 members.
If I could make one final comment, because I really should reserve most of my comments for the FinCom public hearing, which will be on Tuesday night. But I would like to say, my vice chair made an interesting comment. So if the threshold dropped to 11, and whoever the town moderator is at that point in time feels that that's the way it's going to be, what happens when you drop below 11? What happens when 1 or 2 members have to drop off for the exact same reasons we've talked about today, which could be illness or moving out of town or running for election? It's not just, I have to tell you, I think what you're going to hear from the FinCom, it's not, oh, we like it the way it is and that's why we stay. We actually think it's an issue of good governance. And, at the same point in time, you're asking us to lower the threshold for quorum at town meeting because under the open town meeting, as we all know, if a quorum is challenged, that can end town meeting. So it's almost like you're pushing what I consider to be good governance at 2 levels. You're asking for flexibility at town meeting, but you also potentially, I guess you probably don't agree with us on the value of having a broadly representative, diverse FinCom. But I think I better reserve most of my comments for the public hearing. I do thank you for allowing me to participate. And please just view these as my opinion at this point in time, not reflective of my membership. That will come out on Tuesday night. Okay?
Oh, nice.
Joe Sullivan, did you want to add something?
No, I had a question, because I can't find your red line version online. If the proposal that you're making, how is the quorum provision affected? Does the quorum remain at 7, even if it's down to 11?
Well, we do have a quorum provision for all
I
of
believe
the.
it adjusts.
Yeah, I would ask Pat and Lauren just to confirm that.
I don't think, Lauren, I'm trying to remember what we did on this. Did we reduce the quorum to a majority on this, or did we lower it to keep it at 8 or lower it to 7? I just don't recall.
Pat, I think it's in the bylaw.
If you just give me a second, I'm looking it up, but I don't have it
Thank
right at my
you.
fingertips. So I'm sorry about that.
While Lauren's doing that, I just wanted to say to George's point about, well, what happens if 11 drops down below? I think that's one of the reasons we responded to the feedback. Our original proposal was 9 to 15 appointed members, and we raised the lower number to 11, thinking that, if there was some short-term drop, it would probably still stay above 9. I mean, the fact is that even with the current committee structure you have, it doesn't mean that 4, 5, 6, 10 years from now, a chair would be following that same committee structure. So I think that might not be the strongest argument. And I think having people represent divergent views is a great thing, but if there's trouble getting people to serve, then we're trying to provide some flexibility.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Mr.
I know Special Counsel Goldberg is looking up the information. I believe at least in one version, what the committee did discuss was a quorum of each of those boards. So if you recall, the committee talked about putting basically a description or definition at the beginning of Chapter 7. The last sentence reads, a quorum of each of those boards and committees shall be a majority of those members then in office. All appointees shall serve without compensation. So I would defer certainly to Special Counsel Goldberg as well as Town Counsel Ahern on the explanation of that, but I was under the impression that meant if it's at 11, it's a quorum of 11. But I would like again defer to council.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me on that. Yes, we did include, the
Right.
committee did include language that would alter the quorum based on the number of members then in office, so that it wouldn't negatively impact the entire committee if people were not appointed to the position.
Right, but so my question is, do we wish to have Lauren and Pat take a stab at some language?
Dottie wants to speak, Paul.
Dottie?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
Dottie.
just wanted to, also explain to FinCom why we were looking at this as well. It was very thoughtful, we spent a lot of time on this. And it just seems like I've been here, assisting various moderators for the last 15 years. And there are a lot of times that we can't find people to fill those seats. And, it has happened. It has happened quite a lot over the years. We also did a survey with the surrounding communities, and the maximum on most of them is 9. There was a couple larger ones, but again, they were larger cities or towns.
My question still is, how does the committee want to proceed?
Well, I'm not,
Well,
well, Paul, I'm not really sure. So I'm not really sure what the ask is. If we could just sort of frame it as to what are we asking them to do? It's not clear to me because,
Pat, maybe
yeah.
Pat can clarify.
So I want to make sure there's some mitigating language that if I agree with Lauren, I think we're okay operating under 15, but I also want language in there that says if we're below 15, we're okay, so that we don't get a collateral challenge to an action at town meeting. That's my big concern.
Okay.
But Pat, would it also be an objective to allow it to drop down in times where it's just too challenging to fully populate 15 positions?
Sure, but I don't want the actions of town meeting collaterally challenged based on a number under 15 on the FinCom. And even if we would be successful in defending it, it would be really difficult to continue operating in theory when faced with one of those challenges.
So from my standpoint, it'd be nice if you find language that accomplishes what our objectives have been when bringing this forward, that also serves some of the concerns. I don't think we can achieve all of them, but the concerns that the chair of the Finance Commission has brought forth. I don't, in talking this through, believe we should abandon some kind of provision that, like what we've included, that allows it to drop down. I think we should continue to have something and see where it goes.
Is that acceptable to the rest of the committee?
I mean, it's acceptable. So we're going to go in front of the select board Monday. So I think so if we're adjusting the ask, we should let them know that. And I guess I would appreciate their feedback, since we framed it as, as what's shown on the screen here. And if we're going to change that, I think it only makes sense to but inform them if that's the sense, to accommodate and again hear the feedback and try to address it. That's fine, but we need to allow them to know what
because ultimately it's their article.
And I guess I would also just say, this is sort of it's feeling like it's one of these issues that it's being taken personally, and it's not the case from my point of view. All of the changes that I've supported making in this updated charter are through the lens of what's the best for the town in the longer term, and not trying to sort of weaken anybody's position.
John, is that
So Paul, I'm happy to look at, proposal, additional language. I'm not sure exactly, we've been at this for a while, and I think at some point, we have to finalize these articles and get them sort of before the town. So I'm not sure if there's specific languages being proposed tonight that we are voting on to present as part of the formal charter, or if we're just saying, are people happy to take a look at alternative language, which I'm of course happy to look at. But so I think I just need clarity on what's being asked of us, tonight.
Pat, would you have some language in mind, or you just want to vet with Lauren, or how do you want to proceed? You muted.
Given the discussion tonight, I think we need a little, I'll call it development time, to try and develop language that meets the needs that Mr. Hertz has articulated, the moderators articulated, and the committees articulated. And I suspect our meeting Monday night with the select board will be a meeting of the Charter Commission, which will be duly noted and posted. And we can propose language at that point in front of the select board if you want, if we so choose, that can be decided that night.
I'm not sure everybody will be in attendance though, Pat.
Oh, okay,
Well, the majority, I will not be there, but
Okay.
majority of the committee,
I
I
Well,
trust.
Give your feedback to Pat
Sure.
in advance, or that he can share with those of us who are in attendance.
Sure.
I guess I would say if we fail to come up with a revision, I think this is what we're proposing. And we should proceed with something versus nothing. I think we've demonstrated we gave this a lot of thought.
And we're gonna have, and Mr. Hertz, correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna have 2 public hearings in front of the FinCom to let members of the public, further members of the public, voice their opinion on this.
It's still there.
Yes, that's correct, Pat.
You know, good government is sometimes a work in progress always.
And it can reflect a sausage factory.
So then Pat and Lauren, we ask you to.
We understand. I think I understand, and Lauren, I'll be in touch.
With us, and Mr. Hertz, we hear your concerns, and we'll do what we can to
Thank you.
make sure that what we propose is good for the town.
Paul, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, George.
Okay. Before we move on to the next item, I just want to make sure with Pat and Lauren, is there any other part of the proposal, the draft, that you have any concerns about, that you want us to tweak or anything like that?
And not at this time for me.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay.
me either. I think we've gone through everything that's there, so.
A lot.
Okay. Well,
I
as you
was
said,
choosing my words carefully.
yes, as you say,
Counselor.
Mr. Chair?
so yes, Chris, did you
Just
have
as a
something?
point of clarification, and I know it was this committee's intention to have this public forum
Yes.
last Tuesday, and which would have given an additional week. But as far as including in the select board packet for the meeting on the 26th, we would need to have this information by noon on Thursday.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda was to discuss our presentation to the FinCom on February 27th. So we will be going before the select board on the 26th, correct? And then the next night would be the second of the public hearings with the Finance and Warrant Commission. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there, but I know that my fellow committee members can do yeoman's work in that regard. But is there anything we want to discuss about that? Anything you want to review for that presentation?
I think Peter and I are in the driver's seat, and the question is for Peter, would he like to take the lead for for Tuesday night. Peter?
Either way, Nancy, I'll flip you for it.
I think that's what it's gonna come down to.
If you, how about why you can drive it and I'll chime in. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and John, are you able to be there, John?
Yeah, I'm just checking my calendar. So, it's Monday for the selectmen.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then the following Tuesday?
No, the next night.
Next night,
Oh, the immediately following, yes.
Yes, the next night, the 27th.
Yeah, yep.
Yes.
I will do my best to try to tune into the select board meeting. But I have some family travel that I am not able to postpone.
I have a question for Chris. In terms of Monday night and where this would fall on the select board's agenda, do you have an idea at this point that you can share?
So I do not have an idea. We did meet with the chair earlier this morning. Some things have been moved, but not yet finalized. But I can certainly get back to you and Peter to let you both know where it's going to be, as well as Lauren, so she's aware of it
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, you let us all know so that
Mhm.
people can tune in and
Right.
be present.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if George is still on, but and Jess may know is as well. I believe the FinCom meeting, the public hearing is going to be in person.
That's correct. It is in person at the library
Okay.
in the community
So just to
room.
remind everyone, so the meeting on the 26th, the select board meeting is virtual. The meeting on the 27th with the Finance and Warrant Commission, that'll be in person at the library.
Okay, so that comes to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion of future meetings. So we will have to post a meeting for Monday because the Charter Commission will be participating in the select board, and we will have to post a notice of a meeting for Tuesday because at least a quorum of the Charter Commission members will be at the FinCom. So that addresses our next two meetings. What, how would the committee like to proceed after that? Do we want to see what happens after FinCon? And then Peter and I can set a meeting at the call of the chair. How would you propose to do? Would you like to
well,
do?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, Mr. Ahern.
so we know that there are two public hearings with the FinCom.
Yes.
I would suggest that you post the public hearings for the select board and the FinCom, and then we'll play it by ear if we need to meet in between.
Yeah, is that acceptable? If we feel a meeting, so with the call of the chair, Peter and I will call a meeting based on.
So
what I'm-
both, so for three, you're setting up for three meetings now.
Yes.
Select
Maybe
board
four,
and then-
because the second public hearing is always scheduled for 2 nights in case it carries over.
That's the March one, Mr. Hearn?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, so Jess, would you kindly post for those nights and then following what our discussion with the select board and FinCom, we can see if we need to have a meeting.
Does someone know when the March public hearing is taking place?
March 26th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just as a
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just as
Yes.
just a question, just clarification. So
Yes.
just to be clear, so this after the February 26th meeting of the select board,
Yes,
their next two meetings, they're currently scheduled for two meetings in March, one on March 11th and one on March 25th, I believe. Yes, the 25th.
Okay.
So are you suggesting that this commission schedule meetings on those dates for both meetings in March, or just the meeting on the
no,
25th?
just for this Finance and Warrant Commission, if the select board wishes us to attend another meeting, we'd be happy to post a meeting for that time. Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not following. So is it just for
So
the
we are
FinCom
definitely
public hearing?
posting meetings for Monday.
So is it just the meeting,
And
is it the
Tuesday.
second public hearing in March
Okay.
for the
Yes.
FinCom? Is that the only one that
Uh,
you're looking at
the-
in March right now?
We're looking at this point in time for the 26th is Monday, correct? Right? the 27th, and we will post notices for the 2 FinCom public hearings in March. If after we meet with the select board, they wish us to attend either their March 3rd or their subsequent meeting in March, we can post a meeting to for those.
So I'm sorry, so that's where I'm a little confused. As I understand it, there's only one additional public hearing for FinCom in March.
Pat
Yes, but
referred to there
it's
being
not.
2 nights.
They usually
nights.
post
Okay,
for 2 nights,
gotcha.
Chris.
Okay, all right,
2
thank you for
nights.
the clarification. Okay.
Yes,
thank
I'm
you.
sorry if I
will-
confused things.
No, no,
And if after we meet with the select board, we are always at their convenience, Mr. Coleman, to meet with them at any of their meetings.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the clarification.
And then the next item before we move to the public participation, I know Mr. O'Sullivan and maybe some others wish to speak to us. I just want to quickly do the approval of the minutes, if we may. And we have approval of minutes of the January 3rd, 2024, January 8th, 2024, and January 16th, 2024. And I think at least one of those was with Finance and Warrant Commission, correct, Jess?
Yes, the FinCom meeting was on the 16th of January. The select board meeting was the 8th of January. And we had a
Right.
regular meeting on the 3rd of January.
Right, okay. Okay.
I move approval of the minutes from January 3rd, 2024.
Before I accept that motion, is there any amendments, deletions, revisions to those minutes? Hearing
Is there-
none,
Did someone second, Paul?
I've done ask for a second, Pat. So Member Hyde has moved approval of the minutes from January 3rd, 8th, and 16th of 2024.
No, just January 3rd.
Yes,
One at a
sorry,
time.
sorry. On January 3rd, that's right, correct. January 3rd, 2024. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Member Locknane. I will, since we're doing remotely, I will call the roll. Member Cahill,
Yes,
Member Locknane,
Yes.
Member Hyde,
Yes,
Member Powers,
Yes,
and the chair votes also in affirmative.
and
Okay.
I move approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2024 meeting with the select board.
Are there any proposed amendments, alterations, or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, Member Hyde has moved approval of the minutes of January 8th, 2024. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Member Locknane. I will call the roll again. Co-Chair Cahill,
yes,
Member Hyde,
Yes,
Member Locknane,
Yes.
and Member Powers.
yes,
And I also vote in affirmative and unanimously approved. And then I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the January 16th.
with the FinCom, I move that.
Moved. Any amendments, alterations, additions to that? Hearing none, Member Hyde has moved that we adopt the minutes of the January 16th, 2024 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Locknane. Co-Chair Cahill?
I will abstain from those.
That's right, you were not present. Thank you. Yep. Member Hyde?
Aye,
Member Locknane?
Aye.
Member Powers?
yes.
And I also vote in the affirmative. The minutes are approved. Now we will move to the public participation. One of the purposes for this meeting, as I said at the outset, was to educate the residents of Westwood as to who we are and what we've been doing. And so we would welcome feedback from them. I know that the town moderator has a matter he wishes to discuss with us regarding the charter and the future deliberations. So I will invite him. And are there any other members of the public, Jess, that
Not at the moment, no.
so welcome back.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. There is a member from the public typed into chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
If you'd
and-
like, I can
and-
read it unless you want to read it.
Sure, we can read it.
Well, just one moment. So can we just invite anybody else, any other
That's
attendees
what I was
that would
asking.
like to ask a question, to whether it's type a question in or raise the hand function or whatever is preferable, just so that we can call on that person, recognize that
They
person.
identify themselves. We're very happy to include them in the meeting to speak to us or to communicate us via chat. Is there anybody?
There's just the one that's typed in, and if you'd like, I can read it unless you prefer to read it.
No, you can read it, Jess.
Okay.
I think we should just focus on the question.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, what's the I can't see the question. What's
Who
the
will
question?
be the appointing authority for the person who runs our elections? So the person who runs our elections is the town clerk. And the question is, who will be the appointee, the appointing authority? The appointor is actually what it is. And the comparison is made that at the state level, the Secretary of State is elected. And I think we've made a large case for why we're suggesting that the town clerk become an appointed position, which is the equivalent of hiring the person versus elected. And then the question that's appropriate is, what do we have for the appointing authority? And I think we have it written to say that it's the town administrator, but that's something we want to take up with the select board Monday night. It's really their call,
Their call, yes. We've heard,
what they want to see in the article.
that's exactly right, Member Hyde, and we will, it's the select board's, ultimately the select board's article. And we will take what they have to say. But that I guess the question, that the answer to that is, it's not totally, the way the proposal is drafted, it would be the administrator, but we are still talking to the select board about that. Does anybody else want to comment on that particular question? Okay. Any other follow-up on that? Before I invite Mr. O'Sullivan? No? Right, see chat. Q&A chat.
I think we should speak with Mr. O'Sullivan.
Okay, yep. Okay, all right. Can you put Mr. O'Sullivan back in?
I think I'm still in.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Never left.
never
Okay.
left. So
Thank you,
Mr.
everyone.
Mr. O'Sullivan had forwarded to myself and Jessica some information that he asked that I convey to the Charter Commission. And of course, as we always wish to have information and feedback from elected and appointed officials as well as residents of the town, I happily transmitted that, Jim. And so invite you to speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. What I'm here for today is to ask the Charter Review Committee or Commission is to take a look at Chapter 12 of the Charter and maybe consider some changes to that. First, in two provisions of Chapter 12, your body is called both a commission and a committee. You know, maybe that's some of the things that's being cleaned up in the housekeeping issues. I'm not sure, but my focus really is on Section 3.1 of Chapter 12. And I'm asking you to take a look at that. You've done a great job. I like all your proposals. They are all proposed within the best interests of the town. And what I'm suggesting, I think, is also within the best interest of the town. So 12-3-1 says that there is to be a charter review committee that cannot meet sooner than every 10 years. But there's no requirement in there that there has to be a review. And I think you should tighten that up. There should be a review. It should be every 10 years. All it now says it can't be less than once in every 10 years. I think it's healthy for an organization to go through a process like this, and I think it should be mandatory. And the way I read it right now, it is not. And second, I think this section should require a report from the Charter Review Committee. That report could simply be, we have reviewed the charter and we recommend no changes. But at this point, it does not do that. You are a legislative creature. You're created by the legislature of the town of Westwood, and you report to town meeting. And so that's the third change I'd like you to take a look at. I think the moderator, whoever that is in 10 years, and that's not going to be me, should be involved in appointing at least some of the members of the Charter Review Committee or the Charter Review Commission. We've had some great select board members We've had some great town moderators in this town since I've been here 32 years. But who knows who's going to make up the select board 10 years from now, and who knows who's going to be the moderator 10 years from now. The way this works is the select board creates the committee and then decides in the end whether your report should get to town meeting or not. And I think that's a flaw in the charter. The select board can vote to endorse or not to endorse your end product, but really it's not up to the select board to decide whether your changes should be approved or not. Those changes get approved by town meeting members, by town meeting. I did a poll of the Massachusetts Moderators Association, and I got about 12 towns to respond. And in all but one of those, the moderator is involved in some way in the structure of the committee. It is only in the town of Wareham where it's strictly the select board. Representative town meetings are a different creature, and I think it's different. So what I'm suggesting, I'm not suggesting that the moderator 10 years from now will be the person who's going to appoint the Charter Review Committee, but the moderator should be involved at least in some of the appointments. We have currently the commission, your body is a great body. I have no objection to anybody who's on it. But there might have been other people I might have suggested. I don't know if there's anybody on the body right now who was a chair of FinCom. That's probably an outlook that should have been considered and might help in your deliberations as you review the charter.
Mr. Moderator, I believe Ms. Hyde was chairman of FinCom at one point in time.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I stand corrected.
I think Cahill was also a member, longstanding member of the FinCom.
Was he a chair?
Yeah, no, I was a vice chair.
Vice chair.
Okay. So as a practical matter, you could come up as a body with some proposed changes. And if the select board doesn't like those changes, they could decide not to put it on the warrant. And town meeting members would not get an opportunity to vote on it. I think that's a flaw in the system. The only way you could get around that would be to have a petition drive and get enough signatures and force it on the warrant. And that's not how it should happen. So again, I have no objection to the current members of the committee. I have no problem with the current select board. And as I say, I can state unequivocally right now, I will not be the moderator 10 years from now. So I won't be the person who's going to be involved in any kind of appointment. But I think you ought to take a look at that.
Thank you. Just so that as we did 10 years ago, it would be our intent that even when we finished at the end of town meeting, that we would be submitting a report to the select board to talk about what we did and also things that that should be considered in the future, and also to advise them that they should follow up the Charter Commission with a bylaw review committee. Bylaw review committee. So we will be actually submitting something to the select board, and we can ask them, even if we don't everything that's brought to us, if we don't consider it this charter, it's certainly something that we can ask the select board to think about thoughtfully and consider. But that's, we would be submitting, and we did that 10 years ago as well. So
what if they decide not to put it on the warrant? What do you do then?
put what on the warrant?
Your proposal.
It's not a proposal. It's not proposal. It's a report, as this is what we did, and these areas. These are things to think about in the future.
Right, but you've got discuss certain articles to go before town meeting this year.
We will discuss the articles at town meeting. With FinCom and select. I'm talking about when we're finished. When we're
I
done.
think if I could interrupt, I think what I think what I'm hearing Mr. Moderator say is, just taking a step back, what if we wanted to make changes? Let's just say the treasurer change, and the current composition of the select board was not interested in making that change and even allowing for that suggestion to be on a warrant article. Is that, Mr. Moderator, is that the scenario? you're-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a flaw in the current charter. I don't think that's up to the select board. It's you're a legislative body. It's the legislature of the town that's gonna change the charter, if at all. The select board can opine on it, as could the school committee, as could the planning board.
I would just, I don't mean to interrupt you, I would just respectfully say, I think town meeting is the legislative body of the town.
Yes. Well,
So-
you are a legislative body, though. You're
Mm.
created by the legislature. And you're not a
Created by
body.
the
of
charter.
select- But what do you do? That's my question. Mr. Cahill kind of asked it succinctly. You're contemplating a number of changes to the charter. There'll be separate articles. And if the select board hypothetically were to decide they didn't like those changes and didn't want to put them on the warrant, what's to prevent them from not allowing town meeting to discuss it?
How would your
Bye-bye.
proposal prevent that, Mr. Moderator?
I would say you change 12.3.1 that says that.
That's not what I
charter-
asked. How would you having input in making appointments to a charter commission change that if the select board doesn't want to bring something forward on a warrant?
Well, it's a check and balance on the charter review committee. You know, whoever that moderator is gonna be. Well, actually, it goes to the other provision I'm talking about, that it be required to happen every 10 years, and that the charter review committee be required to report to town meeting.
I have no problems with either of those changes, but I believe the warrant, the select board is responsible to produce the warrant for town meeting, and I don't see how what you're advocating changes that.
Which part of what I'm advocating?
If you were to have appointments on the charter
okay.
commission, and the
Okay,
select board didn't want to move a recommendation of the charter commission forward, how would having one or two appointments change that?
well, then the speaker of the legislative body of the town, which we call the moderator, would have the ability to make appointments, and those members could report to town meeting and say, hey, this is what we tried to do, and we were prevented by doing that by the select board.
Mr. Moderator, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess a few things come up for me with this discussion, because when I look at what would now be 12.2.1, it says the select board shall appoint a committee of not fewer than 5 nor more than 9, not less than once every 10 years from the date of the last review. So that means a committee and a review must happen at least once within 10 years after the previous review. And I understand what you're saying. It could be stated more directly, but in my opinion, it already does require a once every 10-year review of the charter. The other thing is that it says the committee has to make a recommendation to a subsequent town meeting to replace, revise, or amend. And so the committees 10 years ago and this committee have decided to make their recommendations to town meeting through a report to the select board. I don't think there's anything that prohibits the committee from seeking, a petitioned article, which is what would happen if the select board wouldn't be in favor of putting something on the warrant. But it would be highly unusual in my experience for the Finance and Warrant Commission to kind of supersede or supplant the select board's authority over the warrant. So I give those as kind of food for thought, because I can see that, that would kind of blend the line between the executive and the legislative, whereas right now the legislative body town meeting, there is a way for people to petition articles to appear on the warrant.
May I respond?
Certainly, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, take a look at that section again, Attorney Goldberg. It says the committee meets not less or not sooner than 10 years, but it doesn't say when it has to meet by or has to be formed by. That could be 100 years from now. Secondly, the poll, I don't know if people have had a chance to take a look at my small spreadsheet, but the custom in this town is that the moderator is involved in appointing at least some of the members of any charter review committee. And I'm not saying the moderator should be making all the appointments. If the members took a look at that spreadsheet, there are certain numbers below each town. Those numbers were registered voters. That's not the number of citizens in the town. So these towns that responded to me are fairly comparable to Westwood. There are a number of different ways of composing a charter review committee, but only in the town of Wareham, I believe it was it strictly the select board. And there, the select board does confer with the moderator. The select board in Westwood did not confer with the moderator when your body was composed.
I have two thoughts.
Certainly, Ms.
One is, I'll combine my two thoughts. We voted in December not to take up any new issues as a committee. And we are well into a process now. So the second part of my thought is we're hearing something, we're really not able to fully vet this at this late time. I'm wondering if we could do two things. One is included in our report to the select board. You know, there's the every 10-year review, but there can be one-off opportunities if somebody wants to do a home rule petition article at any time. But also, you know, maybe the select board might want to consider as a policy, including the town moderator as an ex officio member in a future constituted review committee, charter review committee. I think we're in a very difficult position to comprehensively consider what Jim's speaking about tonight at this date, late in February, when we've been at it for 2 years and we close things in December.
And I understand the point Ms. Hyde is making, and I raised it indirectly back in December, and maybe I should have attended that meeting. On the second point that she made, I think the one person who cannot be on the charter review committee is the town moderator. So I don't think that, pardon me?
Per state law, because I don't think it says it.
No, I just think as a matter of policy, the moderator should not be participating in the review. The moderator can address the charter review committee, but should not be attending meetings. I don't think that's a good idea.
Again, I think we're very late in the process to be considering this.
Okay, well,
I think that as we indicated a few minutes ago, even on the article relative to FinCom, if we do decide to make a change, we have to talk to the select board about it, because they've already sent approved the article and posted it. But I think Ms. Hyde makes a valid point. We can certainly, you know, we'd have to talk to select board about it if we were gonna.
why is that? I think, see, that kind of makes my argument as far as I'm concerned. Why it's not a select board article, it's a legislative article. It's the charter review committee.
The select board controls the finance and warrant commission warrant, Jim. Always
Good,
has.
Well,
I think,
that
I certainly
points out
think
the law.
I think it's something that we, you know, as I said, we can certainly present to the select board as something, you know, to think about it now or in the future, but that, and we can raise it with them. I think Ms. Hyde has indicated that we'd be happy to do that.
And I'm hearing more tonight than I heard as a preview, so I'm not even sure I could do it justice with the select board Monday night, to be honest. I wasn't expecting all of the granular detail that you just went into, Jim. I don't know if you can put something in writing, but one other thought I want to make, and I see John has his hand up, so I don't want dominate the conversation, but I don't think we'd be doing our job particularly well, or review committee wouldn't be doing the job particularly well if they weren't able to bring things forward that they could explain to the select board and have the select board not want to put them on the warrant. In other words, if we're doing our job as we've done, and the select board hasn't agreed with all of the details we've included in the articles, we've received feedback along the way so that we've improved them. I think we would be doing so with a body that would be receptive to our proposals. I don't think it's an adversarial or confrontational process.
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt, Nancy. Jim,
No,
are you
that's
planning on attending the select board meeting on Monday night?
Certainly listen.
Well, I'd encourage you to attend and
Yeah, yeah.
and tell them what you think.
And I've already done that. I've spoken to two of them. I reached out to the third, and I will speak to that member. And I just ask you that you do it right, you know, and if this is something that should be considered, it's never too late. You don't have articles proposed yet. You still have time to address this.
We really don't, Jim. I think that's, we have a public hearing on Tuesday and one in a month, and we're trying to address some other issues. We don't have time to do justice. After putting in 2 years, I think that's an unreasonable ask.
And for those people who are interested, the Secretary of State has a handbook on local charters. It tells you everything you'd ever want to learn about local charters. I have a copy if anybody wants to see it.
Member Loughnane, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to offer, some thoughts on this. I value Jim's input and his services as moderator and his perspectives on these issues. I just wanted to convey that during the deliberations and the 24 meetings or so that we've had over the years, there were a number of areas that we looked at, and we sort of had I think a working tenet that I think I articulated a couple of times, and I think others agreed with me, which is, at the end of the day, we need to make a deliverable for the, deliverable as to certain specific recommendations that should be made sort of immediately on the charter. And, the process has a beginning, middle, and an end. And if the standard that I applied personally was, if it's not fundamentally broken, if it's not like essential that we address this, let's make sure we focus on what really needs attention now. I mean, this charter process, it's every 10 years. Jim, I do think the way I read that language is the selectman's got to appoint it every 10 years. There has to be, and that's the way it has worked in practice here. And I think it would continue to work that way. So it's not like this charter gets done and then nobody can read it again, or nobody can opine on it, or nobody can get together and present a recommendation. I just feel like the work that we've done in here was put in with the objective of coming to certain proposals that will actually make town government, more efficient or more effective, better serving the people of the town. And with these specific recommendations that we've made, there may be others as well. Not to, I don't want anybody to think that, well, because the town charter committee, didn't address this point, that section is perfect. It may not be. It's just that we had to prioritize what we thought was most fundamentally important to bring to the town at this particular point. So that may be obvious to folks, but I just wanted to convey that in terms of what I understood our mission to be. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I appreciate the perspective of everybody. And town meeting is a different creature, and I'm still learning about it myself. And I hadn't even thought of some of these issues through until the most recent meeting of the Mass Moderators Association. And when I spoke to Pat in December, I had the flu, so I wasn't thinking clearly then either. But as to John's first point, if I'm reading the charter correctly now, once you finish, the town of Westwood cannot have a charter review committee sooner than 10 years. The
But-
language is very clear.
But at any given time, and Lauren, you could tell me, that we could bring a home rule petition to address.
Oh, no, Paul, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't think it prohibits the appointment of a charter review committee at any time. It's
Right.
just saying it has to happen at least once in every 10 years. There's nothing that would prohibit the select board from appointing a charter review committee at its convenience.
Or if there was something that had to be changed in the charter because of a change in circumstance or in law, at any given town meeting, they could consider a home rule petition that would address the charter. Right?
But there can't
Correct.
be a charter review committee. If
Well,
I'm right,
there can be a charter, as I think Lauren said, the select board could decide next year that they want to have another look at the charter, or something could change in state law and it would need to be addressed in a town's charter. And they could review it and propose home rule petition at that point in time as well. So
Agree.
I hear what
yes.
you're saying.
It
I
doesn't
just asked
say
you to take
not-
another look at that section. I don't think it says
Happy.
that.
So, Mr. Chair, so Mr. Moderator, I've had occasion to look at a lot of these provisions, and unless there's some sort of clear directive that says that they can't appoint for some other reason, in my opinion and my experience, it's been that they can appoint. It's just saying that they have to do so not less than once every 10 years. So this wouldn't prohibit the charter from being reviewed, pursuant to a directive from the select board, or as Town Councilor Hearn mentioned, there's a petition process to seek charter review as well. So that's another way. And then there's access to the warrant through a petitioned warrant article. So there's nothing in that that prohibits further review of the charter within those 10-year time periods, in my opinion.
Yeah, it says not less than. I think it would be different if it said not more than.
and I don't want to put words in town council's mouth, but if the select board asked you the same question, Pat, you would say you don't have to wait 10 years. Is that correct?
Not if something pressing came up.
Yep.
And I gotta tell you, when the pandemic hit, I had many thoughts about maybe we need to change the charter. Given how we couldn't how difficult it was to operate while we were locked down.
If I could just say, I
Yes, second, Peter.
appreciated Mr. Moderator bringing the perspective to our attention, because when he was talking and he said that it was sort of open-ended, that it could be it was the opinion of they might not ever have to appoint the Charter Review Commission. I was concerned, but I would agree with Lauren's interpretation of it. That's how I read it, just first as a plain reading, but then as a lawyer as well. I don't think that it can be sort of reasonably interpreted by a future rogue select board that they don't have to appoint a charter. I think that's my opinion, but I appreciated that was the perspective, Mr. Moderator, and that you shared that with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Oh, and again, as we will, as Pat said, Jim, we're going to be talking to the select board on Monday about this all too. So.
And Jim, you're more than welcome to come and voice your opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I hope, I understand you had a loss of a friend or family, and my sympathies.
Thank you.
You know.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other public participation? Anybody else looking in the chat?
Not that I say.
No. Okay.
Can I add, though, when I was going through the questions, there was a comment about the town clerk, and it was a recommendation that the town clerk, if hired, should be hired from within Westwood.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add that to the record.
Thank you. Thank you. No further business. I will, and Jess, you will post those 2 meetings.
I think we're up to 3.
And I'll accept an motion to adjourn, and I thank everybody for, it's been a long evening, but I appreciate everybody's participation, and I hope we were able to answer questions. And again, we'll continue to be available to explain who we are and what we're doing and why we're recommending what we're recommending.
I move we adjourn.
Made by Member Hyde. It's a second by Member Lockney. I will call the roll. Member Lockney. Aye. Is
Aye.
aye. Member Hyde.
Aye.
Member Powers. Aye. I think you're muted, Dottie. Here.
Yes.
Yes. Co-Chair Cahill.
Yes.
Yes, and so we will meet again on Monday in conjunction with the select board. My thanks to Mr. Coleman, Mr. Ahern, and Lauren, and as always, Jess. I don't think people understand how much Jess puts into all this, and she and I put dealing with things. But thank you, Jess, even on your being away doing this. Thank you all.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
You
Good
too.
night.
Thank you.
Right.